The fact that we could hit a recession could make stocks plummet. Very common question being asked, will there be a recession in 2023? My first answer is, I don't know. Is there a likelihood of it? Sure. I see people saying all the time, now banks are saying 70% chance. Well, it's interesting to me because a year ago, it was 0% chance. I mean, essentially, that's what people were saying. Oh, there's no chance of a recession. This is ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. There's gonna be a lot of arguments that we already had a recession this year. Frankly, it does not matter to me. To me, I look at stock market valuation. And when I'm looking at any sort of investment, I look at it saying, okay, where do we stand? I do look at the macro picture. Let's say, for example, the S&P currently is at 4,000. If it was at 1,500 today, I wouldn't care about the recession. I'd be like, okay, fine. But because we're massively overvalued, because S&P, based on data going back to 1929, says that we're 60% overvalued from historical norms, the fact that we could hit a recession could make stocks plummet. For me personally, I'm being more cautious in terms of buying in because I do believe there'll be better chances to buy stocks in the future. Look at a company like Tesla. Look how quick that turned. Tesla's down 53% in the last 3 months. In the last 3 months. Why? Because of Twitter? My whole point about all this is, guys, what we're trying to teach on this channel is there are going to be recessions. There's going to be booms. There's going to be busts. You are going to be affected at home just based on your ability to have income coming in, etc. But that's all the more reason why you need to save very ample amounts of money. If you feel like you need to have an emergency fund, great. My belief in emergency funds is not the same as everybody else's. You need to be able to make sure that you make sound investments. And when you do save for retirement, you save for the long run by dollar cost averaging. If you do those things, yes, a recession could absolutely hurt you, but it'll be a temporary pain. In the last 120 years, how much has this country grown? And look at how many recessions we had. That's incredible. That's an incredible feat. We've had world wars, we've had assassinations, we've had terrorist attacks, we've had every possible bad thing happen. And you might sit there and say, yeah, Paul, it's 120 years. Go look at the last 40 years. Since I was born in 1981, what have we had? Assassination attempts. I mean, all these things have happened. And guess what? Over time, as long as you pay a reasonable price for investments, things go up. Even if you overpaid for a while, things will still go up. Because I believe in the US economy. Do I care there's a recession coming? No. Now you might sit there and say, well, it's easy for you to say. You might be right. But I want you, it's all a matter of perception. I want you to have the same outlook on the world that I have. It's a much better way to live. Now, that doesn't mean you go spend 100% of your income and then go, oh my God, recession, I'm screwed. No, go save a lot. If it feels comfortable for you to have a rainy day fund, go have a rainy day fund. But max out your retirement accounts. Make sure you don't overspend. Don't buy frivolous things. Enjoy your life. But when you buy frivolous things, make sure you have ample room in there for that. Be like, you know what? I want to go splurge and buy this purse. Buy my this purse. Great. Well, if you want to buy our $2,000 purse, don't have $2,000 in your bank account. Have $10,000 and you're like, you know what? I've covered a lot. We're good. I really want to splurge for her because we don't splurge a lot. Go take that vacation. But just remember that it's not going to be perfect forever. So back in the Great Recession, a friend of mine had a contracting business and he was always the sales guy. As far as I knew him, he was the sales guy. He's the one that ran. He didn't do any manual labor. Well, 07, 08 hit. He went from 25 guys down to like 5 guys. And you know what else? He started doing the work himself. So here was a guy who was in his 40s who was doing the work himself because he had to. And even to this day when we talk about it, he goes, yeah, that sucked. But he had to do what he had to do. But now he operates his business very differently. Why? Because he remembers that. And he goes, listen, I just don't want to have to ever go back and do that again. And his business does very well, but even now, his spending is different. He learned the lesson that way. And sometimes the experience is the most important lesson, right? But why learn from experience when you learn from somebody else? And I'm sure you out there, if you ask anybody who's 45 or older, they are affected by that recession. Go talk to them about how it happened. It will happen. There will be bad recessions in the future. And if you go out and build a business, he didn't want to go out there and work work the actual job and do the physical labor. He was like, man, I'm too old for that. Well, guess what? He had to do it. He did it. And I very much admire him for doing that. He never complained. He never sat there and said, oh, F this, I've worked. No, he's just like, listen, I got to do it. Because it's either I do that or I don't put food on the table. And it sucked for the 20 guys he had to lay off because there was no work for them. And that does suck. But guess what? All those guys are now working in. A few of them have started their own businesses along the way. And those are the positive things that happen from it. But it still sucks when you're in it. And I don't want you to have that experience. And your goal is to not get wiped out. How do you not get wiped out? Just being more conservative. Listen, even during the Great Recession, the unemployment rate was 11%, which is a lot, but it's still 89% of people still working. And that's what I want you to focus on. And if you have everything in place and you do things right and you don't spend crazy and frivolously, you will do fine. And then you'll use recessions as an opportunity for the future. Now, back to the question, are we gonna have a recession? A lot of companies, major companies, are talking about pulling back and laying people off, etc. That seems recessionary. Is it gonna happen? I don't know. I don't know, but it seems like people are making the self-fulfilled prophecy of a recession happening. Because if we start laying people off, there's less income coming in. 70% of US GDP is consumer spending. If a lot of people start losing their jobs, because remember, right now we have what? 3.7% unemployment? That's really freaking low. We should have 5.5 to 6. Guys, if we went to 5.5 or 6% unemployment tomorrow, there'd be chaos in the streets. Absolute chaos. But that's normal. This is inflationary. We have inflation. And when there's inflation, what's the Fed doing to fight inflation? They raise interest rates. When they raise interest rates, what does that mean? It means less people are buying homes, less people are buying cars, less businesses are expanding because the cost of money is higher. For them to expand and borrow money to expand, it costs more. So what happens? There's less spending. There's a contraction. And that's the whole key. It could be a self-fulfilling prophecy, or it could just be, listen, the United States Fed, the Fed is saying, listen, we've got a low unemployment rate. We've got big inflation. We got to fight it. We're okay with this happening because we need to fight this inflation, because the high inflation is affecting everyday middle-class people way more than if we had a recession. They're okay with that. That's their piece. More power to them. I don't know if they're right or wrong. All I know is we are sitting in an environment where things have been really, really good for a really long time. Besides COVID, take out COVID, it was really good for 14 years. That's not normal. You have to have some sort of break. Listen to my voice right now. I get sick about once a year. I'm coming off a little bit of something. Guys, I can't be not sick forever. And when I do get sick, it sucks. I'll be tired after this video is done. Like literally, I'll be like, oh my God. That's no different than a recession. And guess what? Recessions are good. It gets rid of junk businesses. It gets rid of inefficiency. It makes the cream rise to the top. People don't lose their jobs forever. Are there tough times? Absolutely. And I'm never going to try to discredit that. But your job is to make sure you plan for those situations. The other thing is become a better employee. Be the person that your company can never lay off because you're so good at what you do and you're so efficient for them. Let's say there's 5 people in a company and you're 80% efficient. Everybody else is 60%. Who are they getting rid of during a recession? You're the last one to go. Whenever I teach at my high school, I used to teach all the time. I used to always say the first day of class, I don't care if you own a business, I don't care if you're an employee, be the most reliable person in your company. Because when times are tough, they're gonna go to the reliable person. They're not gonna go to the unreliable person. That's just the way it is. So if a recession happens, it's probably likely because we haven't had one in a long time. And granted, that's statistically speaking, not an accurate statement, but there's a lot of companies talking about laying people off, which I hadn't heard in a long time. But we're hearing that all over the board. And granted, they're big companies. They're talking about laying 5, 6, 7,000 people off at a time. But that's just those companies. Imagine the millions and millions of small businesses that might have, instead of laying people off, hey, we used to have you 25 hours a week, we're gonna have you 15 hours a week. That's some sort of unemployment. It's still taking back hours, and that has a cycle to it. So a lot of people watching this probably don't even remember the Great Recession of 07, 08. You know, Nate, our intern over here, was, what were you, 7, 8 years old when that happened. I lived it, and I did very well during the recession because I'm a more conservative value investor, right? However, during that time, there was a lot of people were tough out there. I remember we were in real estate, and we still are in real estate. We were rehabbing properties. We couldn't get people 2 or 3 years before to rehab the properties. All of a sudden, tons of people came into rehab. That was very telling to me. It was like, okay, I didn't like the fact that they were desperate. I remember saying to our coworkers, I was like, listen, we have an opportunity here to get great people at great prices. That's not going to last forever. And sure enough, 2 or 3, 4 years later, the markets were turning more and more, and we were priced out of rehab again. That's the thing that happens in cycles. Those people who were so desperate were all of a sudden like, hey, Paul, I don't need it anymore. And some of them, the ones who were jerks, I was like, F off. But the ones who were like, hey, Paul, I can go do this job. Hey, more power to you. I don't blame you. Go for it. Go make your money while you can. The ones who are respectful. And that's the thing about recession. When you're in